Okay, so you want to own a private island. Your own piece of paradise. White sand beaches, crystal clear water, palm trees swaying, complete privacy and autonomy. No neighbors, no traffic, no noise except waves and birds. Maybe you build a luxury villa, maybe you develop an eco-resort, maybe you just own it for family vacations and bragging rights. Ultimate freedom, ultimate exclusivity, the pinnacle of wealth. Sounds like the perfect trophy asset. And honestly, from the outside, it really does look that way. But here is what people who actually own private islands know, and what most people browsing private islands Inc. at 2 a.m. never tell you. A private island is not a beach house with extra space. It is an off-grid real estate development project with no municipal services, no emergency infrastructure, and supply chains that break down every time weather turns bad, where a $2 million island purchase becomes a $6 million total investment after you add docks, power generation, water systems, septic, housing, and boats, where annual operating costs run $180,000 to $800,000 plus depending on size and development level, where a single hurricane can cause $1.5 million in damage that insurance covers at 60 cents on the dollar if you can even get coverage, where selling takes 3 to 7 years because your buyer pool is 50 to 200 people globally, and where the romantic isolation you bought for becomes the logistical nightmare you cannot escape. The exclusivity is real. The financial reality is brutal, in ways that most people never see coming. Let's start at the beginning. When people say private island, they could be picturing vastly different assets. A small island in North America, 2 to 10 acres, undeveloped or minimally developed, $200,000 to $3 million. A mid-sized tropical island in the Caribbean or South Pacific, 15 to 50 acres, some development, $3 million to $25 million. Or a large developed island with existing resort infrastructure, 100 plus acres, $25 million to $300 million. The economics of these are completely different. A small recreational island is a luxury second home with complications. A mid-sized island is a development project. A large resort island is a commercial hospitality operation. Most people fantasizing about island ownership are picturing the middle category. Tropical, 20 to 40 acres, enough space for a main house, guest cottages, beaches, privacy, maybe future development or rental income. Here is something that surprises people when they first look at this market. There are approximately 500 to 800 private islands actively listed for sale globally at any given time. Prices range from $50,000 for a rocky, inaccessible acre in Canada to $300 million for a fully developed resort island in the Bahamas or Maldives. The market is incredibly illiquid. The average time on market for a private island is 2 to 6 years. Many listed islands have been for sale for 8 to 12 plus years. Sellers are often estates, distressed owners who underestimated costs, or developers who never completed projects. The buyer pool is tiny. Globally, there are maybe 10,000 to 15,000 individuals with the wealth and desire to buy a private island. Most of those already own one or have decided against it after researching the reality. You are entering one of the most illiquid, niche real estate markets in existence. Before you spend a single dollar, you need to understand what you are actually buying. Private island ownership comes in several legal forms. Freehold ownership. You own the island outright, including land and often the surrounding seabed to the low tide line. This exists in countries like the Bahamas, Belize, Canada, the United States, and a few others. You have maximum control but also maximum responsibility and liability. Leasehold. You lease the island from the government for 50 to 99 years, common in places like the Maldives, Fiji, and parts of the Caribbean. You can develop and operate, but you never truly own it. At lease end, improvements typically revert to the government unless renegotiated. Partial ownership or restricted ownership. Some countries allow foreigners to own islands, but with restrictions on development, resale, or repatriation of profits. Others require local partnerships or majority local ownership. Each structure has different implications for financing, development approvals, taxation, and exit strategy. Let's model buying a 25-acre island in the Caribbean, freehold ownership, with minimal existing development. Purchase price for a 25-acre island in a second-tier Caribbean location, not Bahamas or Turks and Caicos, which are premium, but Belize, Grenada, or Nicaragua, $2.5 million to $6 million depending on accessibility, beaches, and existing infrastructure. Let's say $3.8 million. But that is just bare land or very basic structures. To make the island usable, you need infrastructure. Docks and water access. Unless your island has a natural deep water harbor, you need to build a dock capable of handling boats that bring supplies, guests, and construction materials. A substantial dock with 40 to 80 feet of berthing, $150,000 to $500,000 depending on depth, seabed type, and engineering requirements. If the island is in shallow water requiring a long pier, costs escalate to $600,000 to $1.2 million. Power generation. There is no grid. You need to generate your own power. Options include diesel generators, solar panels with battery storage, or wind turbines. A diesel generator system sized for a 3,000 to 5,000 square foot residence plus support buildings, 30 to 50 kilowatts, costs $40,000 to $80,000 installed. Fuel consumption is 3 to 5 gallons per hour under load. At $4.50 to $7 per gallon delivered to an island, operating costs are $50 to $120 per day, $18,000 to $44,000 annually. Solar with battery backup for off-grid reliability, sized for the same load, costs $180,000 to $400,000 installed. Batteries need replacement every 8 to 12 years at $60,000 to $150,000. Most islands use hybrid systems, solar for base load, diesel for backup and high demand periods, $200,000 to $350,000 installed. Water systems. No municipal water. You need rainwater catchment, desalination, or well water if the geology supports it. Rainwater catchment system, cisterns, filtration, UV sterilization for a 5,000 square foot residence, $40,000 to $120,000. Desalination system, reverse osmosis, for 500 to 1,500 gallons per day, $80,000 to $250,000 installed. Operating costs include energy, membrane replacement, and maintenance, $8,000 to $25,000 annually. Wells are rare on small islands due to saltwater intrusion, but if feasible, drilling and pump systems cost $25,000 to $80,000. Sewage and waste management. No sewer system. You need septic systems or advanced treatment. Septic system for a large residence and guest cottage, $25,000 to $80,000 depending on soil permeability and engineering. Waste removal. Trash cannot go to a curb. You accumulate it and transport it off-island via boat to the nearest disposal facility. Monthly costs, $800 to $2,500 depending on volume and distance. Buildings. You need somewhere to live, sleep guests, and house staff or caretakers. Main residence, 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, tropical construction with hurricane-resistant design, costs $350 to $750 per square foot depending on finishes, accessibility for materials, and labor costs. Remote island construction costs 40% to 90% more than mainland construction due to transportation, logistics, and limited contractor availability. A 4,000 square foot main house, $1.4 million to $3 million. Guest cottages, 2 at 800 square feet each, $280,000 to $600,000 each, $560,000 to $1.2 million total. Staff quarters or caretaker cottage, 600 square feet, $180,000 to $350,000. Storage and utility buildings, generator housing, workshop, storage for supplies and equipment, $80,000 to $180,000. Total building costs, $2.5 million to $5.3 million for a modest compound. Site work and landscaping, clearing, grading, roads or paths, retaining walls, landscaping, irrigation, $150,000 to $500,000. Communications, internet via satellite, Starlink or VSAT, $600 to $3,000 for hardware, $100 to $500 per month for service. Cell signal is often non-existent. You need satellite phones, $800 to $2,000 per unit, $50 to $150 per month per line. Boats and vehicles. You need boats to access the island. A 28 to 35-foot boat capable of handling cargo and passengers, $80,000 to $250,000. A smaller tender for quick trips, $15,000 to $45,000. If the island is large, maybe a UTV or small vehicle, $12,000 to $35,000. Furnishings and equipment. Furniture, kitchen equipment, linens, water toys, kayaks, paddleboards, snorkeling gear, $80,000 to $250,000. Permits, legal and soft costs. Environmental assessments often required $15,000 to $60,000. Engineering and architectural fees, 8% to 12% of construction costs, $200,000 to $600,000. Legal fees for purchase, entity formation, permits, $25,000 to $80,000. Import duties on construction materials and furnishings, 10% to 35% depending on country, $100,000 to $400,000. Let's add it up. Island purchase, $3,800,000 dock, $300,000 power systems, $275,000 water systems, $160,000 septic and waste, $50,000 buildings, $3,500,000 site work, $300,000 communications, $5,000 boats, $180,000 furnishings, $150,000 soft costs and permits, $450,000 total investment, $9,170,000. You bought a $3.8 million island. Your all-in cost is $9.2 million before you have spent a single night there. Most buyers drastically underestimate total development costs. They see $3 million private island and do not account for the $5 to $7 million in infrastructure and buildings required to make it functional. Now let's talk about annual operating costs. Staffing. You cannot leave a valuable island property unattended for months. You need a caretaker or property manager living on-site year-round. Salary, $35,000 to $65,000 annually plus housing. If you want a couple, groundskeeper and housekeeper, $60,000 to $100,000 combined. If you use the island frequently or rent it, you need additional staff. Chef, $45,000 to $80,000. Boat captain, $40,000 to $70,000. Housekeeping, $28,000 to $45,000. Maintenance technician, $35,000 to $60,000. For a fully staffed private island used regularly, annual staffing costs run $180,000 to $350,000. For a caretaker-only model, $40,000 to $75,000. Utilities and fuel. Diesel for generators, $18,000 to $44,000 annually if diesel primary. Solar primary with diesel backup, $6,000 to $15,000 in diesel annually. Propane for cooking and water heating, $3,000 to $8,000. Satellite internet and phones, $3,000 to $8,000. Maintenance and repairs. Saltwater, sun, wind, and humidity destroy everything faster than normal climates. Paint, wood, metal, fabrics, electronics, all degrade rapidly. Annual maintenance, painting, roof repairs, dock maintenance, generator servicing, equipment replacement, $40,000 to $120,000 depending on development level and age of infrastructure. Major repairs or replacements every 5 to 10 years. Dock rebuilding, $80,000 to $300,000. Generator replacement, $50,000 to $100,000. Solar panel or battery replacement, $60,000 to $150,000. Septic system repairs, $15,000 to $50,000. Amortized annually, set aside $25,000 to $80,000 for capital reserves. Total maintenance, $65,000 to $200,000 annually. Property taxes and fees. Tax rates vary wildly. Some Caribbean nations have no property tax. Others charge 0.5% to 2% of assessed value annually. At $9 million assessed value and 1% rate, $90,000 annually. Some countries charge annual land lease fees even on freehold islands, environmental fees, or work permit fees for foreign staff, $5,000 to $25,000. Insurance. This is where island ownership becomes financially terrifying. Private islands in hurricane zones are nearly uninsurable at reasonable rates. Standard property insurance, if you can get it, costs 2% to 5% of insured value annually. On $6 million in structures, $120,000 to $300,000 per year. But most insurers exclude hurricane and flood damage, which are the primary risks. Specialized hurricane coverage, if available, costs 4% to 8% of insured value and comes with 5% to 15% deductibles. At 5% premium and 10% deductible on $6 million, you pay $300,000 annually in premiums. If a hurricane causes $2 million in damage, insurance pays $1.4 million. You pay $600,000 out of pocket, plus you already paid $300,000 in premiums that year. Some island owners self-insure, setting aside $150,000 to $400,000 annually in a reserve fund and accepting the risk. Total insurance or self-insurance reserve, $150,000 to $350,000 annually. Boat operation and maintenance. Fuel. Dockage fees at marinas when traveling to mainland. Maintenance. Haul-outs. Bottom paint. Engine service. $15,000 to $45,000 annually per boat. Supplies and provisioning. Food, beverages, household supplies, all must be transported to the island. Costs are 30% to 80% higher than mainland due to transportation and spoilage. For regular use, $25,000 to $60,000 annually. Transportation and travel. If the island is in a remote location, you need flights to the nearest international airport, then flights or long boat rides to the island. For an owner visiting 4 to 8 weeks per year, transportation costs $15,000 to $40,000 annually depending on distance. Staff transportation and rotation, if you rotate staff seasonally, $8,000 to $20,000. Management and administration. If you hire a property management company to oversee operations when you are not there, 8% to 15% of operating costs or $3,000 to $8,000 per month, $36,000 to $96,000 annually. Legal and accounting. Offshore entity maintenance, annual filings, tax compliance, $5,000 to $20,000 annually. Let's add it up for a moderately developed island with caretaker staffing. Staffing, $50,000 utilities and fuel, $25,000 maintenance, $90,000 taxes and fees, $40,000 insurance, $220,000 boat operation, $25,000 provisions, $18,000 transportation, $20,000 management, $50,000 legal and accounting, $12,000 total annual operating costs, $550,000. You are spending $550,000 per year to own and maintain an island you might visit 3 to 8 weeks annually. That is $68,750 to $183,000 per week of actual use. Now let's talk about what kills private island investments faster than anything else. Hurricanes and natural disasters. A Category 4 hurricane makes direct landfall on your island. Buildings sustain major damage, roofs torn off, windows blown out, flooding, docks destroyed, boats sunk or damaged, solar panels ripped away, landscaping obliterated. Damage estimate $2.5 million. Your insurance pays $1.6 million after deductibles and exclusions. You are out of pocket $900,000 plus you need to fund immediate repairs while insurance processes claims over 6 to 18 months. Reconstruction takes 12 to 24 months due to logistics, permitting, and contractor availability. During that time, the island is unusable. You are still paying $220,000 annually in carrying costs, staff, insurance, taxes. Total cost of the hurricane, $1.8 million to $2.5 million between damage, out-of-pocket repairs, and carrying costs during reconstruction. One major storm can wipe out 5 to 10 years of theoretical enjoyment value. Political and regulatory risk. You bought an island in a developing nation with favorable tax treatment and minimal regulation. A new government takes power. They implement a 3% annual wealth tax on foreign-owned real property. Your annual tax bill jumps from $15,000 to $290,000. Or they nationalize all coastal properties, offering compensation at 30% to 50% of market value. You lose $5 million to $7 million in value overnight. Or they impose new environmental restrictions prohibiting development or requiring expensive remediation. You are forced to spend $400,000 on mangrove restoration and reef protection measures. Political risk in island jurisdictions is real and largely uninsurable. Access and logistics collapse. Your island is 45 minutes by boat from the nearest town. The marina where you dock your boat is sold to a developer. New ownership prohibits long-term docking. You need to find alternative docking, but nothing is available within 90 minutes. Island access just became twice as difficult. Resale value drops 25% to 35% because buyer pool shrinks. Or fuel becomes scarce or expensive in the region. Diesel prices spike from $5 to $11 per gallon. Your annual fuel costs triple from $22,000 to $66,000. Or the nearest airport loses commercial service. What was a 3-hour total journey becomes a 7-hour journey requiring connections. Accessibility destroyed. Environmental and legal restrictions. You purchased the island planning to build additional structures or develop a small eco-resort. After purchase, you discover the government has designated the surrounding waters as a marine protected area. New development is prohibited. Expansion plans dead. You cannot recoup value through development. Resale value declines because you cannot monetize. Or endangered species are discovered on your island. Turtles nesting on your beach. Protected birds in your trees. Development is blocked. You are required to limit human activity during nesting seasons. The island becomes a liability, not an asset. Health and safety emergencies. A family member has a medical emergency while on the island. The nearest hospital is 90 minutes by boat, then 45 minutes by car. Weather is marginal. The boat trip is dangerous. You call for helicopter medical evacuation. Cost, $25,000 to $60,000. Your insurance covers part, you pay $18,000 out of pocket. Or a staff member is injured in a maintenance accident. Workers' compensation claim, liability exposure, potential lawsuit. Your insurance premiums increase 40%. Illiquidity and inability to exit. You need to sell due to financial pressure, health, or changing priorities. You list the island at $8.5 million, below your $9.2 million all-in cost, hoping to sell within 2 years. After 18 months, 0 offers. You drop the price to $7.2 million. After another 12 months, 1 offer at $5.8 million. You reject it. By year 4, you are desperate. You accept an offer at $6.1 million. After broker commissions, 5% to 10% on island sales, legal fees, and closing costs, you net $5.5 million. You lost $3.7 million on the investment, plus you paid $2.2 million in operating costs over 4 years. Total loss, $5.9 million over 4 years of ownership. Let's talk about the island owners who make it work financially. They monetize through luxury rentals. They build a high-end eco-resort or private island rental, marketing to ultra-wealthy travelers at $5,000 to $25,000 per night with 3 to 7 night minimums. At $12,000 per night and 60 nights booked per year, gross rental income is $720,000. After management fees, 25% to 35%, staff, operations, and marketing, net income is $250,000 to $350,000. This offsets $250,000 to $350,000 of the $550,000 in annual costs. The island costs $200,000 to $300,000 net annually, but it is being used productively and building brand value. After 10 years, they sell for $12 million as a turnkey rental operation. They recover their investment plus generate income during ownership. They buy strategically in appreciating markets. They purchase an island in a region experiencing rapid luxury development, Bahamas Exumas, Belize Barrier Reef Islands, before prices spike. They hold for 10 to 15 years while the region becomes a luxury destination. Comparable islands that sold for $4 million are now $14 million. They sell for $13 million. After costs, they made $2 million to $4 million in appreciation, offsetting some operating costs. They operate within their means. They buy a small, accessible island for $800,000. They build a modest 1,500 square foot cottage for $350,000. Total investment $1.2 million. Operating costs with minimal staff, $80,000 to $120,000 annually. They use it heavily 12 to 20 weeks per year. Cost per week of use, $4,000 to $10,000. Comparable to renting luxury villas but with ownership and privacy. They view it as a lifestyle asset, not an investment. They accept they will never recoup costs. They do not care. The joy, privacy, and family memories are worth $100,000 to $150,000 per year to them. They can afford to lose money on it. It is a consumption asset like a yacht or art collection. Let's run the numbers two ways. Best case scenario, monetized island. You buy a 30-acre island in Belize for $4.2 million. You invest $5.8 million in infrastructure and luxury accommodations. Total $10 million. You operate it as a luxury rental 100 nights per year at $9,000 per night average. Gross rental income $900,000. Net after all operating costs and management $280,000. Annual operating costs $600,000, offset by $280,000 rental income. Net cost $320,000 annually. After 12 years, you sell for $14 million as a proven income-producing resort. Net after sale costs $12.8 million. You invested $10 million, spent $3.84 million in net operating costs over 12 years, total $13.84 million. You recovered $12.8 million plus you enjoyed use during off-rental periods. You lost $1.04 million over 12 years, roughly $87,000 per year, for owning a private island and enjoying weeks of use annually. That is financially survivable for the ultra-wealthy. Realistic scenario, personal use island. You buy a 22-acre island in the Caribbean for $3.5 million. You spend $5.2 million developing it. Total $8.7 million. You use it 5 weeks per year. Annual operating costs, $480,000. Cost per week, $96,000. After 6 years, life circumstances change. You try to sell. Market is soft. After 4 years on the market, you sell for $6.5 million. Net $5.9 million after costs. You invested $8.7 million, spent $2.88 million in operating costs over 6 years, total $11.58 million. You recovered $5.9 million. You lost $5.68 million over 6 years, $946,000 per year, for 30 weeks of total use. Cost per week, $189,000. The difference between those outcomes is monetization strategy, location appreciation, and financial staying power. The private island market is tiny. There are maybe 8,000 to 12,000 privately owned islands globally, perhaps 200 to 400 change hands in any given year. The people who make island ownership work financially are ultra-high net worth individuals, $50 million to $500 million plus in liquid assets, for whom $150,000 to $500,000 in annual operating costs is immaterial. Or they are developers and hospitality operators who buy islands to develop resorts generating $2 million to $15 million in annual revenue. The median private island owner is spending $180,000 to $650,000 annually in operating costs and using the island 3 to 10 weeks per year. They accept it is a consumption asset. They will never recover their investment. They do not care. The people who get destroyed are aspirational buyers who stretch to afford a $2 million to $5 million island, underestimate development and operating costs, run out of capital after 2 to 4 years, and sell at massive losses. Or they discover the logistical reality, isolation, whether maintenance is not romantic, it is exhausting. They list after 18 months and take a $1.5 million to $3 million loss. The palm trees sway automatically with the breeze. The waves wash the shore without effort. But the island does not run itself.